Slammiversary 2020. This is going to be your Slammiversary 2020 predictions and preview video. Of course, Slammiversary is this Saturday, July 18th on pay-per-view on Fight TV and wherever you can find it around the world. We'll be doing a watch-along here on the channel for it, so be sure to join us here for that. In this video, we're going to basically just go through the matches, do a bit of a preview, my thoughts on it, and also a prediction for all the matches as well. It's a really exciting time for Impact Wrestling at the moment. There is so much going on. Just so much buzz around the company, so much buzz that hasn't really been there for the longest time when it comes to Impact Wrestling. And I think, is it because of the potential of the ex-WWE people signing with the company? Obviously, that plays a factor in it. But I don't think that's everything when it comes to Impact Wrestling at the moment. I think also there's a lot of buzz around the company because the product has been very, very good for a long time. I think that's also, if we just focus on the ex-WWE guys coming in and the people coming in now that their non-compete clause has expired, then I think it's quite disingenuous to the good work and the excellent work that's been done by Impact Wrestling over the last 2 or 3 years, really. It's been quite a few years now that Impact Wrestling has been a really solid show, and you look at the people that have come through Impact Wrestling in the last year, whether it is Brian Cage, the Lucha Brothers, Santana and Ortiz, John Morrison, etc. The names are there, and they prove that Impact Wrestling not only has a really good eye for talent at the moment, but their booking, their show, all of it is just very, very, very good. So it's an absolute credit to Impact Wrestling, the amount of buzz, attention, and hype that is coming into this Slammiversary pay-per-view at the weekend. So I'm really excited for it. They're hyping it up as a bit of a game-changing event because of all that's going to happen at the event, and I tend to agree. It's going to be a really exciting time. I think it's going to turn a lot of people's heads, and I think we're going to have a lot of people watching and interested to see what Impact Wrestling does. So a really exciting event coming up this weekend. So first up, we have an old-school rules match for the unsanctioned TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It's TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose, the real world champion, going up against Tommy Dreamer. Now, I've mentioned a few times here on the channel and in the recent Impact Wrestling videos that we've done here that the people involved in this match isn't exactly the way that I would do it. I'm a really, really big fan of this whole TNA World Heavyweight Championship feud, story, more the angle and the gimmick. I think that's really fun, and I've spoken on the channel a few times now that I'm enjoying this whole Impact Wrestling embracing the TNA wrestling aspect of their past, not being afraid of it, bringing back the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I think that's been great, and I've really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed the memories that come with that and the historical nature of it. I think that's been great. I've really enjoyed Moose's run so far with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I think it's given him a real new lease on life in Impact Wrestling. He's done a lot of great stuff, and he's actually been with the company for quite a while now. He's pretty ingrained in Impact Wrestling, isn't he? But I think this TNA World Heavyweight Championship run is really given him another level and another dimension to his character. And what I mean by that is, previously he was either just a good guy or a bad guy, whereas this time he's added a little bit of comedy to his character, which isn't a bad thing. I think it adds a bit of charisma because the way they've been doing this story so far is that it doesn't mean anything, right? It's an unsanctioned championship. It's an old TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It doesn't exist anymore. It's actually quite farcical, Moose going around calling himself the real world champion. And I understand that to a point, and I've enjoyed that part of it. The place that I'm not too thrilled about it, and this is no slight against the man himself, but I'm not sure why they would have Tommy Dreamer in this spot. And the reason I say that is, look, Tommy Dreamer is obviously a legend in the business. He has been everywhere. He has just contributed so much to the industry when it goes back to ECW. Even his work in WWE, he was actually part of talent relations at the time, and he's worked with House of Hardcore, his own promotion, and he works as a producer and agent backstage here at Impact Wrestling. So there's so much that he has done for various companies over the course of his career, and you can't ignore that. You can't ignore his contributions to the business. None of it. I just don't know if I'm completely thrilled or excited in the prospect of a Moose versus Tommy Dreamer match. I feel that this is a bit of a missed opportunity when it comes to Impact Wrestling, and moreover, I think it's a missed opportunity when it comes to the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And the reason I say that is because I think, given all the hype that's around Impact Wrestling at the moment, given the buzz that's around Slammiversary at the moment when it comes to who are the people that are going to be coming into Impact Wrestling, who are the people that Impact Wrestling have signed from the people that were released by WWE, which people are returning to Impact Wrestling that were outside of WWE at the time, all of that stuff. I think this would have been an excellent opportunity to expand on that from the TNA history point of view. Every week on Impact recently, we've been seeing these, classic moments in Impact Wrestling history, whether it's Chris Sabin winning the X Division Championship, Bully Ray winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship and revealing himself as the president of Aces and Eights. We saw a Knockouts Championship match with the Beautiful People a few weeks ago. Eric Young winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. I think with that, they could have incorporated this into this match with Moose, and instead of facing Tommy Dreamer, I'd have rather him sort of had an open challenge to face any former TNA World Heavyweight Champion or any former TNA original, something along those lines. I think that would have been a lot more exciting. Obviously, it would have had a lot of people guessing about who it's going to be. And again, it would have also been a nice throwback to the past, but also a teaser of, we might see someone return to Impact Wrestling. We might see something shocking at Slammiversary. And with the Tommy Dreamer being in that spot, that just doesn't really happen. Now, that's not to say that we might not see something after the match. I still do think that if EC3 isn't in the main event, he could return during this match or after this match to confront Moose. Of course, Moose has been taking shots at EC3 on social media after Moose won a match on Impact Wrestling recently. EC3's music played, so I've speculated about a feud between those two in the future. Maybe after this match, we actually have EC3 make his return to Impact Wrestling then, and they feud over the championship, which of course EC3 had won at one period during his career with Impact Wrestling. So I think Moose, it's pretty obvious, I think that Moose is going to win this one. It's old school rules, which as far as I'm aware is like a no disqualification, so it's Tommy Dreamer's wheelhouse, so expect lots of weapons, cookie sheets, steel chairs, tables, you name it. I'm sure Tommy Dreamer will take some pretty nasty bumps in the process, but I think it's pretty safe bet that Moose is going to win this one. So I'm going to go with Moose winning this one. I don't expect the match to be anything too spectacular. Like I said, we'll see some nice weapons bumps, but I think Moose wins this one and then hopefully moves on to something a bit more substantial when it comes to the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Next up, we have the Impact Tag Team Championship on the line. We have the North, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander, the Impact Tag Team Champions, defending against Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan. I've enjoyed the build for this one, I must say. I think it's been a really fun build. It's been more around Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan. The North, for me, are the best tag team in Impact Wrestling right now. That's without a doubt. They've been champions for over a year at this point. They're one of the best tag teams in the world, and that's a big statement to make considering all the great tag teams that are out there right now. But at some points, there have been speculation that they could eventually go to the likes of AEW, and they'd be a fun addition to AEW. But like I say, a lot of the time with a lot of tag teams right now, that tag team division in AEW is just unbelievably stacked. It is the best tag team division in the world. I don't care what anyone says. So I think their best place is where they're at right now when it comes to Impact Wrestling. That's their home. As I mentioned, I think the feud this one has been largely based around Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan. Can they get along? Remember, Sami Callihan's the same one that threw a fireball into the face of Ken Shamrock when he was announced for the Impact Hall of Fame. So it's been about, can these guys coexist? It's sort of a partnership via necessity and all of that stuff. Sami Callihan has faced, was it Ethan Page a couple of weeks ago? Or it might have been, it was Ethan Page on Impact a couple of weeks ago, and they had a match. And I'm sure this will be a fun match. In terms of the prediction for it, I would be pretty remiss. I think the North will retain in this one. The reason I say that is because potentially, there are a lot of tag teams coming in right now that could be a lot of fun for the North to work with. Now, I know some people will say, well, they've been champions for over a year. The whole storyline at the moment has kind of been built around Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock. Does it make sense for the North to finally drop the titles here to Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan? To me, the answer there is no, and the reason as to why, not only is because the North are the best tag team in Impact Wrestling right now, but actually that's kind of a factor of it as well, actually. The reason why they shouldn't drop the titles to Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan is because Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan are not a tag team. This is one of my big rules, is that if you're an established tag team, especially to the level of the North, right? The North have been champion for over a year. They've defeated all comers, all tag teams in Impact Wrestling. They should not be dropping the titles to a team that's not even an established tag team. They don't have long curated chemistry or anything like that. That's just, for me, when it comes to tag team wrestling, that's just my biggest turn off, is when you see an established tag team that work together night in, night out for years. They have their tag team moves, they have their tag team chemistry, they know how each other thinks, as all good tag teams should. They don't even have to verbally communicate, it's all in the mind because they know what the other one is going to do next, and then they lose the tag titles or they lose a match to a tag team that's tagging together for the first time just because it's two main event singles guys. It shouldn't work like that. If you're going to have or maintain the dignity of tag team wrestling, what you really have, and the prestige of tag team wrestling, what you have to have tag teams beating non-established tag teams, because you have to play up that tag team wrestling is completely different to singles wrestling, which it is. The psychology is completely different. The rules are different. The utilization of the referee, the tag ropes, the cutting off the ring, all of it is completely different to singles wrestling. And whenever you have a non-established tag team that's just been thrown together and they beat an established tag team, it makes me pull my hair out because any logic for me just goes out the window when it comes to that. And especially when you're on a level with the likes of the North, who, like I say, who have been tag team champions for over a year. They've beaten everyone multiple times. They're one of the best tag teams in the world. Regardless of the quality of Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan, they shouldn't be defeating them, because Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan just shouldn't have the chemistry and the ability to work together that the North will have. So I expect the North to win this one. I hope the North will win this one. I don't see the worth at the moment of putting the tag titles on Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock unless they're going to become an established tag team for a long time, which I just don't see the case. Potentially, it's a question of, can you trust Sami Callihan, right? Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock do have history together, so I could see a scenario where Sami Callihan turns on Ken Shamrock, or maybe vice versa. Maybe Ken Shamrock turns on Sami Callihan. Also, maybe it's just a slight miscommunication because they're not a tag team, which allows the North to get the victory. I don't think we've seen the last of the Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan matches, so I think this match leads to a future match between Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan again. That's just my thoughts on that one. As far as the North going forward, like I mentioned, they're one of the best tag teams in the world right now, in my opinion, and they need to keep holding the tag team championships, because we're going to hopefully have an influx of quite a few tag teams coming into Impact Wrestling in the near future. We know that Gallows and Anderson are going to come in, so a Gallows and Anderson versus the North feud over the Impact Tag Team Championship is something I really want to see. I think that'll be really good too. Possibly we could have Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder come in too, so you can also have a Hawkins and Ryder versus North feud in the future. Also, potentially, this might be a bit further off, but I've speculated on this over the last few days here on the channel. With the rumours about Chris Sabin coming back to Impact Wrestling, we could potentially have the Motor City Machine Guns come back to Impact Wrestling too. Now, what a match and what a feud that could be. The Motor City Machine Guns, former TNA World Tag Team Champions, going up against the North. That would be a great match too. So we're hopefully soon to see a big influx of tag teams, quality tag teams, into the Impact Tag Team division. Not to say that there aren't any in there already, but certainly tag teams that the North haven't faced before, and that's really exciting. So I think they would lose a bit of momentum if they drop the tag team titles, especially when you're on the verge of facing all of these great tag teams in the future. So I think the North wins this one, but it'll certainly be a fun match to watch. Next up, we have the Gauntlet for the Gold to determine the number one contender for the Impact Knockouts Championship. We have Alicia Edwards versus Havoc versus Kira Hogan versus Kimberly versus Kylie Ray versus Nevia versus Madison Rain versus Rosemary versus Susie versus Tasha Steelz versus Taya Valkyrie. The Impact Knockouts division, as I mentioned numerous times now, for me is one of the best female divisions in the world. Without a shadow of a doubt. It's better than the AEW Women's Division by far. It certainly holds a close comparison, easy for me to say, to the WWE and NXT's Women's Division. I would just say that the WWE and NXT division is slightly stronger, but it's always been a staple of Impact Wrestling, the Knockouts division, especially when it was first introduced. When we had our likes of a Gail Kim and an Awesome Kong back in the day, it drew the best ratings on the show, and that's during a period of time where you had Sting, Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Booker T, etc., AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, all on the show. The Knockouts drew the highest ratings, which says quite a lot about how Impact views them and how valuable they are to the brand, to the company. So we've seen quite a lot of interchangeable parts of this recently on Impact Wrestling, haven't we? Whether it is Susie, Su Yung, she's good. She's good. She tells everyone, "I'm Susie. I'm good." I mentioned this on Twitter. For me, Susie is actually way more terrifying than Su Yung. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just so used to her being this, crazy nightmare bride character, but the Susie character is just absolutely terrifying. Like, whenever she comes to the ring and says, looks in the camera and goes, "Hi, I'm Susie." On it, genuinely terrifying. Genuinely terrifying. Actually scares the hell out of me. I think we could see parts of that played up in this match, obviously, with Rosemary as well. She's been the one trying to get the real Su Yung back out of Susie. We saw on Impact Wrestling this past week, during a knockouts tag team match, Susie gets the victory, but she starts to have the little flashbacks of Su Yung, so potentially this is the return of Su Yung and the disappearance of Susie. It's the Joseph Parks kind of character, isn't it, right? You've got Susie and you've got Su Yung. They're separate entities that aren't aware of each other, but in fact they're the same people. So I think we could see some element of that. Of course, we've got Madison Rayne back in there. She's been doing commentary recently on Impact Wrestling with Josh Matthews, and she hosted a segment of Locker Room Talk recently, with the guest was herself. And the whole point of the segment was announcing that she is going to be returning to the ring for this gauntlet for the gold match for the Knockouts, number one contender for the Knockouts Championship. I don't think Madison Rayne will win, but I think it's a nice push to have Madison Rayne in this one because she's got so much longevity and history with the company. They showed one of her title victories at Lockdown in 2010 a few weeks ago on Impact. And I think the purpose of that was to hype up this gauntlet for the gold match and to hype up this return to the ring for Madison Rayne. Madison Rayne could be the glue in this match. You don't know. It's interesting to see who will be the last entrant into the match. I could see it possibly being Madison Rayne, if I'm honest, because that's the gimmick, right? She's the queen of Impact Wrestling, and she's the legend, she's the locker room leader, and all of this sort of stuff, and she could be one of the last people in the match, make her grand entrance, and then she gets pinned and defeated that way. So I could certainly see it, something like that happening. In terms of who I think is going to win this one, I'm going to go with Kylie Rae. I think Kylie Rae, for me, has had just some of the most momentum when it comes to this Impact Knockouts division recently. I think her facing either Jordynne Grace or Deonna Purrazzo for the Impact Knockouts Championship in the future is a fun match and a good match to have. And to me, it just makes the most sense. As I mentioned, Kylie Rae at the moment is just... she's hitting on all cylinders. She's a well-known name as well from her time in AEW, and ever since she's come to Impact Wrestling last year, she's just done great. She's just done great, and she's popular on social media. She's been doing media recently as well. We'll touch on media in a second when it comes to Slammiversary media. But I think this will be a fun match. I think it'll be a nice showcase for all of the knockouts here, and I think it will turn quite a few people's head. As I mentioned, the knockouts division for me, one of the best female divisions in the world. I still speculate that I think Kylie Rae will win this one. If I had to say who she will eliminate last, I'm going to potentially say she will eliminate Madison Rayne to become the number one contender for the Knockouts Championship. I also think we'll get a Su Yung and Rosemary spot in there as well. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of stories to be told in this gauntlet match, but I think Kylie Rae leads. Never say that I don't try and keep these videos as up to date as possible. Just as I had finished recording the predictions for this video, it has just been announced by Impact Wrestling that the Rascals have issued an open challenge for Slammiversary this Saturday live on pay-per-view and Fight TV. So again, I was halfway through the editing process when it came to this one, so caught a little bit off guard by it. Interesting to see that it is an open challenge by the Rascals. I think this is likely going to be the place for one of my previously mentioned tag teams. We've talked about tag teams in this video, about Ken Shamrock, about Sami Callihan, and about Moose, about the North. And I mentioned that the North should keep the tag team championships because of the influx of tag teams coming to Impact Wrestling in the near future. And I think this Rascals Open Challenge is just going to be a further case of this. So if I had to predict who it's likely to be, I think two tag teams that come to mind that it could probably be are obviously Gallows and Anderson. I think Gallows and Anderson could potentially be the tag team there, but I don't think they will be. I think the tag team that will respond to the Rascals Open Challenge here will indeed be Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. They've been hyping up the July 18th date. They've been talking about coming in as a tag team. I still think Zack Ryder's best money and best work in Impact Wrestling would be as a single star, but to be introduced as part of a tag team with longtime member, friend, and tag team partner Kurt Hawkins, Brian Myers, I think that would be the best way to introduce Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder to Impact Wrestling. So I'm going to go with Kurt Hawkins and Impact and Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins and Impact Wrestling. See, I'm flustered. I didn't expect this. To be Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, Brian Myers, and is it Matt Cardona? His name he's going by at the moment. I think they're going to be the ones to answer the Rascals Open Challenge, and I think it's going to be a place for Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder to make their debut with Impact Wrestling. Next up, we have the Impact X Division Championship on the line. Impact X Division Champion Willie Mack defends against Chris Bay with Johnny Swinger at ringside. Now, recently on Impact, we've seen a lot of comedy spots from Johnny Swinger. You've also noticed, and this is going to be quite an interesting thing here, I think this match is where we will see the return of Eric Young, aka Super Eric, to Impact Wrestling. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the segments and vignettes that we've been seeing for Super Eric have happened around the time they've started to focus on the X Division Championship match, or in some cases Johnny Swinger himself. He was dressing up as Suicide a couple of weeks ago to face Willie Mack on Impact Wrestling, and whilst he was looking for the disguise and he found the Suicide outfit and mask, he found Super Eric's costume backstage. So how do you counterbalance Johnny Swinger in this match? You have Willie Mack be saved by Super Eric. So that's where I think Eric Young is going to return to Impact Wrestling in this match, in this X Division Championship match. In terms of the match itself, Willie Mack versus Chris Bay, it should be a good match, should be a fun match. I think I've mentioned this as well, that I think that the Impact X Division is where Impact Wrestling needs to up their game slightly. There's no slight against the people involved in this match. I just think it was such a staple of Impact Wrestling in the past, and the history and the lineage of some of the people that have been X Division champion and some of the matches that were put on in the X Division is somewhere that I think Impact Wrestling needs to improve slightly. That can certainly be helped by bringing in the likes of maybe a Mike Bennett, amongst others, to add some credibility to that division. That would certainly be something that I'd be hoping that they do in the future. I think Chris Bay is a real talent. He's got a great look. He can work great. I'm going to go with Chris Bay to win this one with interference from Johnny Swinger, even though at some point I'm not actually sure if Johnny Swinger is allowed to be at ringside, right? Wasn't he banned from being ringside at some point? So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm sure he'll try and get to the ringside somehow. I thought his match against Willie Mack a couple of weeks ago when he was dressed as Swinger Side was absolutely hilarious. He still had the Suicide outfit, but he was showing off his chest and all of that stuff. I thought it was great. So really interested to see what Johnny Swinger does. As I mentioned, I think this will be the opportunity for Super Eric and Eric Young to return to Impact Wrestling. I think Johnny Swinger maybe somehow gets involved, or post-match they attack Willie Mack or something of that nature, and we suddenly see the return of Super Eric to fight off Johnny Swinger, because that makes the most sense. Johnny Swinger is a complete comedy character. He's yes, he is associated with Chris Bay, but he's a comedy character. All of his segments are comedy. Any match he has are comedy. And how do you counterbalance a comedy character? You add in another comedy character, that being Super Eric. Some people will say, oh, should Eric Young be returning as a comedy character when he left Impact Wrestling, he was a serious character? That's very true. But I think they're probably doing that, one, just to... You need someone to counterbalance Johnny Swinger, but also you just need to reintroduce Eric Young somehow to the company, and also you need to get the stink off of that WWE run, right? Have something a little bit lighthearted. We can go to serious Eric Young in the future and not have to worry about the consequences of it. It's quite difficult to take that character seriously when... I mean, he wasn't even appearing on... Was he even appearing on Main Event? I don't know. So, it's a nice, fun introduction to get Eric Young back in the company. So, I don't have a problem with that. As mentioned, I think Chris Bay leaves the new X Division champion here. And I think, hopefully, this will be an impetus for more traditional X Division style matches, and Impact taking the division a little bit more seriously, and having the better matches that the division is accustomed to in the future. Next up, we have the Impact's Knockout Championship. On the line, we have Impact Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace defending against Deonna Purrazzo. Now, it has been reported when it comes to Deonna Purrazzo by Fightful that Purrazzo has not signed a deal as of yet with Impact Wrestling. She is on a per-appearance agreement. They want to see how things work out with her. She has been obviously working all of Impact's upcoming tapings. Her non-complete clause with WWE ended on May 22nd, so that's anything like that. So it's a really interesting situation when it comes to Deonna Purrazzo. Would she win the Knockouts Championship here? She doesn't have a contract. Would it be wise for Impact to put the title on her? If they do put the title on her, it's pretty obvious that she does have a contract with the company. As far as Jordynne Grace, I'm a big fan of Jordynne Grace. I think her look is great. I think her work in the ring is great. She delivers one of the best AA spinebusters I've seen probably since Arn Anderson. That move is unbelievably snug, which is great. In terms of who I think is going to win this one, this is a really interesting one, I think. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video here that I thought Kylie Rae was going to win and become the number one contender for the Knockouts Championship, which I still think is the case. And I think we're going to see a bit of a curveball here. In all of the build-up we have seen in so far on Impact Wrestling, when it comes to Jordynne Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo, it's kind of Purrazzo getting the edge over the mind games of Jordynne Grace. I think in terms of the match, I think Jordynne Grace will probably, in a lot of strength, she'll probably dominate her. Deonna Purrazzo will try and get in her head slightly. And I predict that coming out of this, we're going to have a new Impact Knockouts champion, that being Deonna Purrazzo, purely because I think it's a given that she's going to sign a contract with Impact Wrestling. I don't think they would put her in this spot just for it to be a one-off feud in and out and let her go. To me, that just seems bad business. I think maybe she did initially have a per appearance deal with Impact Wrestling, but to me, to put her in, Slammiversary is one of the biggest shows of the year. Your Knockouts Championship is the biggest championship you have in your female division. Jordynne Grace has been a great champion for Impact Wrestling. To put Deonna Purrazzo in that position without a guaranteed contract, working on a per deal basis, potentially she could have a great showing here and then go to an AEW or whatever. To me, it just seems bad business. So I would assume that a deal has been done or is very close to being done between Impact Wrestling and Deonna Purrazzo. At least logic would say that is the case. You'd hope so, wouldn't you? So I'm going to go with Deonna Purrazzo to win this one and become the new Knockouts champion here. And then future on, we have Deonna Purrazzo going up against Kylie Rae for the Impact Knockouts Championship in the future. I think that makes the most sense out of all the combinations we can go with here. Jordynne Grace, though, I don't think her feud with Deonna Purrazzo will be ending just yet. I do think Deonna Purrazzo will win here. I think it's a bit of a redemption story, really, given that the way her run ended with WWE. She wanted out. She wasn't happy with the way that they were using her. She thought she could do better, and you got to remember the way she entered in the company, whether it was through having a match or going to have a match at All In rather, and just the way that run happened. I think it's a redemption story for Deonna Purrazzo, and a lot of people are a lot of fans of Deonna Purrazzo and her work, myself included. So I think that Slammiversary is going to be a bit of a crowning moment for her, and I think it's going to lead to a Deonna Purrazzo versus Kylie Rae feud in the future. But I wouldn't, on the other hand, be completely surprised if Jordynne Grace wins this one, just because I think she's such a great champion and such a great competitor for Impact Wrestling. So it's a tough one to call, but I'm going to go with Deonna Purrazzo. And then finally, we have the main event. We have the Fatal 4-Way match for the vacant Impact World Championship. Ace Austin versus Eddie Edwards versus Trey against a mystery fourth competitor yet to be announced. Now, obviously, this match is for the vacant Impact World Championship because Tessa Blanchard, of course, is no longer with the company. She had the championship removed when she was terminated by the company. Originally, it was going to be like a 5-way match or something along those lines. If Tessa Blanchard defending against Michael Elgin, who was also in this match, he's now no longer being used by the company. I don't know if he's still technically under contract. He won't be seen on Impact Television going forward. That was the phrase used, wasn't it? So that's an interesting one when it comes to him. But let's focus on the match. And most importantly, what everyone is talking about, let's focus on that TBA, the mystery fourth person in the Fatal 4-Way match for the vacant Impact World Championship. A lot of people have been speculating. Impact Wrestling have been doing their very best to be speculating. We've been speculating here on the channel for the longest time, haven't we? Who is going to be the fourth guy? Impact Wrestling have been hyping up that a former world champion is going to be returning to the company, and he's going to be bringing some friends with him. This has led to so much speculation about who this fourth person will be. Now, I've gone on record to say that I think this person will be EC3. He's been hyping up, obviously, the July 18th date. He also, and I did the video on this yesterday, released a video of him walking on the train tracks. Don't walk on the train tracks, kids. And he had multiple people behind him in the sort of EC3 style hoodies. So that lends credence to the tagline of former world champion. EC3, of course, is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Is going to be returning to Impact Wrestling. Obviously, he had his run with Impact Wrestling, and he's going to be bringing friends with him. He had friends behind him on the train tracks there. Don't walk on the train tracks, kids. And that all fits. So EC3, to me, is the logical step in there. I mentioned previously about being Eric Young. I think he goes into the X Division Championship match. The only other people that I've seen some people speculating that it could be, I mean, to be honest, it could be anyone. They've said that a former Impact World Champion is returning to the company. They haven't specifically said it's going to be in this match. So it could be a Heath Slater. It could be a Mike Bennett. It could be Zack Ryder. It could be whoever. I still think EC3 is the most likely person here. Also, as well, it's convenient, isn't it, that this whole time that EC3, since he was released by the company, he wasn't doing any media. He wasn't going on any podcasts. He was just doing his own thing on social media. He was doing his own promos, his own vignettes, control your narrative, doing the teas and promos about AEW, doing the AEW puns, doing the Ring of Honor, There Is No Honor video that we've covered on here on the channel. He was doing all of that, and he wasn't taking interviews. He wasn't going on people's podcasts. He wasn't doing anything of the sort. Fast forward to the week of Slammiversary, and a few days removed from Slammiversary, suddenly he has begun doing interviews once again. He's done an interview with Fightful. I believe he's done an interview with Wrestle Talk TV. He's done it, he's done it all. So not surprising that he's starting to do media during the weekend of Slammiversary. I wouldn't be surprised if Impact have asked him to do that, or if that's just an EC3 thing himself. It's more about getting his name out there and ready for his return to the company this weekend. So I think it's pretty obvious at this point that it is going to be EC3. Another thing you do have to factor in when it comes to this match, though, is the Aces and Eights. Now, the Aces and Eights, we know they're coming back to Impact Wrestling. It's been teased on Impact Wrestling so many times. It's been teased, whether it's the classic moments that they're showing, whether it's been outright teased by D'Lo Brown saying he wants to get the band back together. We know Gallows and Anderson have signed with Impact Wrestling also. Luke Gallows, of course, has history. Doc Gallows has history with Aces and Eights. Kyle Anderson has history with stables, with the likes of Bullet Club. So it would be remiss to say that it looks likely that D'Lo Brown and at least Luke Gallows and Kyle Anderson will be part of the new version of Aces and Eights. Do we see an Aces and Eights appearance here? We also know that Bully Ray's contract with Ring of Honor has recently expired and he has not signed or been offered a new one. Bully Ray is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion and, most importantly, the president, the leader of Aces and Eights. So if Aces and Eights return here, I'm not saying that Bully Ray is going to be the fourth person in this match. I still think it could be an EC3, potentially with his stable, with his friends, the Control Your Narrative stable. But we could also get an appearance from Aces and Eights in this match. What a way to end the show. Right, you have EC3 return to the company. He is the mystery fourth guy in the Fatal 4-Way match. He wins, becomes the Impact World Champion on his first night back with the company. He's celebrating, but his celebration is cut short. His celebration with his friends is cut short by the returning Aces and Eights, the likes of D'Lo Brown, Mr. Anderson, Luke Gallows, Kyle Anderson, and possibly even Bully Ray. And then they feud with EC3 in the future. Or potentially, the show could also end with EC3 winning the Impact World Championship, and then he is confronted by Moose, who of course they have been feuding with on social media. EC3's music played during Moose's match a few weeks ago on Impact Wrestling. Moose actually cut a promo on EC3 on social media as well, mocking the Control Your Narrative promos. We then have a feud of EC3, the Impact World Champion, versus Moose, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, to find out who indeed is truly the real World Champion in Impact Wrestling. So there's so many ways to go about it. As you can probably tell, my prediction, not only is EC3 going to be the fourth man in this Fatal 4-Way match, but I also think the fourth man will win the vacant Impact World Championship, and EC3 will become a two-time Impact World Champion by winning the match at Slammiversary. So that's my prediction for that match, and that's my prediction for all of Slammiversary. So that's my predictions for Slammiversary for this Saturday. We will be attempting to do a watch along of the pay-per-view as well, so if you're interested in watching it along with us and want to have some casual wrestling conversation, be sure to join us there. We'll be putting up the stream very soon for you to be able to click on and remind yourself for. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms there on the screen right now. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to give this video a like, share, and share it with your friends. And also be sure to subscribe to WrestleNews365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. We're on the road to 500 subscribers, on the long road to 1,000 subscribers. As I mentioned, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll be able to do live streams and much more video and top quality content for you. So the quicker we get there, the more fun we can have on this channel. I really do appreciate everyone that has subscribed in the last few weeks. It's been crazy, but let's all enjoy the ride when it comes to that one. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.